What's up guys, Kyle here again, and I was all excited to do this video in my living room today because the sun was shining and it was super nice out, and as soon as I set everything up, the sun went away and now it's raining, so awesome. It is yet again time for me to respond to some of your guys' comments, so let's get into it. Bro, you should have totally ran the pre-out into the power section of your XXX. This comment was left on my PV Rage video that I posted yesterday, which actually got a surprising amount of views and comments on it. So in the video, the amp sounds terrible, but I also mentioned that there is a preamp out on the back of the Rage, which I just kind of thought was hilarious. Like, why would you include that on a tiny little practice amp? But I did mention the idea of running it into like a big 2 power amp or something, kind of as a joke. But a couple people left comments saying that that would be kind of a cool video idea. So if you guys want to see that, let me know down in the comments and I will put a video together of me running the preamp of a PV Rage 108 into something like a PV XXX power amp, or even better, why don't we run it into something ridiculous like a triple rectifier 150 watt power amp, or the Mezzabarba power amp, you know, from a super high-end boutique amp, just because we can. If you guys want to see that, let me know down in the comments. Dude, nice haul. Looks like I'm gonna have to start snooping around Marketplace. Don't be creeping up in my spot, bro. Seriously guys, if you are not checking Facebook Marketplace, chances are you're probably missing out on a lot of really good deals. So for the longest time, the great place to find items locally on the internet was Craigslist. I can't even count how many amazing deals I've found on Craigslist, and still to this day, I tend to find some here and there. But unfortunately, it really seems like Craigslist has become somewhat of like a ghost town. Like, there's just not nearly as much stuff being posted, and the stuff that is being posted is either really junky or people who are like overvaluing their stuff and putting like long ridiculous listing, you know, basically if these listings were on Reverb, they would definitely end up on Fluff's series of ridiculous Reverb listings, because it's always some weirdo trying to way overhype and oversell some piece of garbage gear or some weird guitar that they've modded to have like an extra 3 strings for no reason or something, and then they try to sell it at $1,000 over what it should be sold for. And that's assuming that anybody would even want to pay money for it. So I run into a lot of that, especially here in Erie. Like, it's just because we're kind of, there's major cities all around me, but there are also a lot of very rural areas, and it seems to come from those rural areas the most. Not 100% sure why, but anyways, back to Facebook Marketplace. Once Facebook Marketplace became a thing, everybody has Facebook for the most part, which means that Facebook Marketplace has a much larger user group than, say, something like Craigslist, where only, you know, a select few people tend to post on there and a select few people tend to look on Craigslist. So with Facebook Marketplace, you're kind of putting your items in one of the highest visibility, most easy to access marketplace sites out there. And they walk you through how to post, so even if you're not super comfortable with posting, Facebook still makes it fairly easy. Now, unfortunately, in the last year, Facebook has basically made it impossible to look at local listings, which drives me absolutely insane. I used to find stuff on Facebook Marketplace left and right, and now it's like if I really want to find something, I've got to dig through the weeds like really, really hard, because essentially the entire search list is now populated with ads that people have paid for in order for Facebook to boost them in visibility, in order to get more views, in order to, you know, sell their item quicker. But that really sucks for people who, like me, who like to look at local listings, because number one, I don't really feel comfortable with buying from most people off Facebook Marketplace. I did get ripped off once in the very beginning when Facebook kind of offered their payment option. Well, come to find out, it wasn't actually protected for purchases, which I fought with Facebook over and over again on that, and yeah, I lost. So I lost $550 on that transaction to someone who looked legit, who spoke legit. I even went into their Facebook, they had tons of pictures and everything, so I don't know what happened there, but they completely deleted their Facebook after they stole my money. So it was definitely a scammer, and they got me. But yeah, all of that aside, you can still find good deals on Facebook Marketplace if you really do some digging, and that's what happened to me 2 days ago. I found an awesome deal, and then I documented it. I made a video. You guys seemed really into that video, but hopefully that inspires you to kind of take a look at Facebook Marketplace and maybe find some deals of your own. I know for me, I usually look once a day at least, sometimes more if I have a little bit of time in between videos or something, and a lot of the time I end up finding something that is worth grabbing locally. I would say maybe once every week or two, I find a decent listing, usually not as good as the one that I found in the video that I posted for you guys the other day, but very often I end up finding something worth snagging either for myself or to turn around or trade for something higher in value. So yeah, I definitely suggest keeping an eye on Facebook Marketplace, especially if you're savvy with buying and selling. The chug don't work for me. Never has. Space, comma, yuck, exclamation point. ... Give me a big super roaring hot rodded overdriven tones. A big tones. Any day. Soldano SLO 100 screams with vengeance. Soaring higher. Diezel has its place amongst amps. Exclamation point, exclamation point. Dude, I have literally no idea what you're trying to say, because it starts off like you're saying like the Diezel sucks or doesn't work for you, and then you talk about the Soldano SLO 100 being great, and then Diezel has its place amongst amps. So not really sure what you're trying to get at, man, but that was pretty nonsensical, and honestly it made me laugh, so thank you for leaving that comment. I would ride a bicycle naked in a crowded city at rush hour for that head. Okay, or you could just buy one. You gotta use the right cab with Diezels. A Diezel cab with front-loaded G12 K100s is unbelievable. Well, in reality, you kind of have to choose the right cab for every amp, but I know what you're saying. A lot of people responded to my Diezel Herbert playthrough video and kind of addressed the fact that I said that I chose a cab specifically for that video that I felt would accent the Diezel Herbert the best. And a lot of you guys said that I should have chosen a front-loaded cab, and I understand that. Like, I definitely understand front-loaded cabs are tighter, they are more directional, they are more focused, and I think that all of those things would benefit the Diezel Herbert for sure. But again, I know my cab collection very well. I know how certain cabs sound. I know what types of heads work with a lot of those cabs, and for me, that Randall and that Diezel was just a perfect pairing, because not only is the Randall a little bit brighter on the top end and way tighter on the low end, it's just really focused. It has no sort of low end woofiness or rattle. It still recreates low end well, but I dropped my phone. But it significantly tightens up boomy and bassy and muddy sounding amps that just have like an out of control low end. And in that video, while I was playing the amp and on the playback, I felt like I chose the right cab. So I really appreciate you guys commenting and saying, you know, it would be cool to hear it with the G12 K100 front loaded Diezel cab. I wish I owned one. The only Diezel cab that I own is the rear loaded Vintage 30 cab, and that cab sounds massive, so honestly it's not a good pairing whatsoever with the Herbert unless you're just going for those massive sludgy dark and boomy tones. Not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that's not typically what I go for. So I am definitely going to do a video sometime in the near future about pairing the right amp with the right cab. And then also on top of that, pairing the right overdrive with the right guitar rig in general. Because pairing the speaker cab to the amp is a huge, huge thing. And I really feel like a video showing you guys why I choose certain cabinets for certain amplifiers would be really, really helpful. So I'm gonna put something together like that sometime in the near future here. It'll probably be a couple weeks before I get to it, but it's definitely in my mind as a piece of content that I'd like to make for you guys. And then on top of that, with the overdrives, like certain overdrives can really make or break your tone, in my opinion. If you're missing something, those overdrives can really shape the tone in the way that you want it if you choose carefully for the type of tone that you're gonna go for. So I will definitely make sure to make a video on pairing the right overdrive with your rig, which includes the guitar and pickups, the amp, and the cab and speakers. And I'll put that sometime out probably in, you know, end of April as well. Hopefully that's something you guys are interested in, but again, I think it'll be a helpful piece of content, and I think that you guys will get a lot out of it. I don't know what it is about Diezels. I love the tones others get with them, but they don't do anything for me. Well, Fluff, that is ironic because that is the same way that I felt about Mesa dual rectifiers for a really, really long time. Every time I would hear someone playing one that I knew how to dial it in, I thought they sounded incredible. Every time I played one, I thought it sounded terrible. I hated the way the amp felt, and it really took me a long time to understand those amplifiers and get the sounds and the feel out of them that I personally wanted, but I feel like I've finally gotten there, and it has become an amp that I definitely like way more than I ever expected to after the first couple that I've owned. But at the same time, I definitely understand where you're coming from, because Diezels have a very signature feel. They have a very signature gain structure, and that is definitely not for everybody. It is definitely a very unique sounding amp that doesn't really sound like the tones that everybody is accustomed to hearing for the rock and roll, punk rock, or heavy metal and hardcore type guitar sounds that have been driven into our heads over the last 30, 40 years. Bull! Gonna need to see some Greenbacks speaker love in your cab vids. Criminally underrated by metal guys. You know what? I have to agree with you, man. And I honestly was really surprised the first time that I heard Greenbacks in a metal setting. I actually thought that they sounded really, really great. Ironically, I watched Glenn Fricker's video about a solar guitar that he had just gotten yesterday. And in the video, he was playing through a cabinet loaded with the EVH 20 watt Greenbacks. And I literally rewound the clip because typically, no offense, Glenn, if you ever see this, I don't really care for the guitar tones that you go for. They're just not the guitar tones that I liked. But that tone caught my attention immediately. And then afterwards, after he was playing, he said it was the EVH 20 watt Greenback that he was miking up. I was like, all right, like I need to do some content with some Greenbacks because I do have a couple variations and they're not a speaker that I really talk about or feature on the channel very often, but they do sound really, really good for metal. One thing that you do have to keep in mind though is those speakers are subject to breakup. Much like a tube power amp or preamp or even solid state, you can drive speakers too hard, or not necessarily too hard, but you can drive them to a point where they break up and they give you an additional bit of distortion. Now for the classic rock guys, the guys who were cranking plexis and were trying to get the most gain out of their rig that they possibly could in the 70s and early 80s when that's all that was available, that was a good thing. That speaker distortion was a good thing. The power amp distortion was a good thing. But a misconception in the metal community that I see a lot is people say, well, you're not pushing the amp hard enough to drive the power tubes. You're not pushing the amp hard enough to drive the speakers. Well, you don't want to push those things too hard for metal tones because most metal tones, especially the ones that we have come to know and love, come from a very clean power section where all of the gain is being created by the preamp section, and a very clean speaker that is able to faithfully reproduce those clean tones from the amp without breaking up and adding its own distortion to the tone. So ideally for metal tones, you don't want any speaker breakup. You don't want any power amp distortion or breakup. Yes, you can get the tube saturated to a point where they will sound a little bit better, but you don't. I see a lot of people saying you want to basically overdrive the power section to make, you know, high gain amps like a 5150 sound good, and that's just not true. They were designed, in fact, with the opposite idea in mind, with a ton of clean headroom and biased cold. That way you're not distorting and compressing the power amp by pushing the tube super hard. So that just got off on a whole tangent. So basically what I'm trying to say is, yes, I will definitely feature some more Greenback content in the future here because I do have multiple cabs that have Greenbacks in them. I have a couple different variants of Greenbacks, and I think that they are good speakers for metal for sure. So we will go ahead and we will get those featured sometime on the channel here in the near future, among many other speakers that I still need to make demos for. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for your comments. That is going to do it for me today. As always, keep commenting on the videos and leaving questions and leaving your thoughts because I love that. I love to see your guys' thoughts on the videos, on the gear, on the sounds that I'm getting, on your experiences with stuff. So please never stop dropping those comments down and giving me something to reply to on these videos because these are a lot of fun for me, and I love the fact that we get to kind of engage each other a little bit for these viewers' comments videos. If you would like to support the channel, down in the description are all my support links, including my Sweetwater affiliate link. Click that link, get yourself something nice from the fine folks at Sweetwater. I get a little kickback, it costs you nothing extra, and it greatly helps my channel move forward. Or consider becoming a member of my Patreon group, like these fantastic people here, and supporting the channel that way. I'll love you forever, whether you want me to or not. And last but not least, I have a Facebook group built around this channel, which is basically just a community of people who love talking about amps and guitars. It's a really friendly and informative space for gearheads, much like myself and much like yourself. So it would be awesome if you would come and join that. That is also down below in the description. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like button on the way out. Consider subscribing so you don't miss any more belligerents. Kyle here again, and we'll see you next time.